Okay, it's last but not least speaker that I'll be introducing for today. We're going to be wrapping up with an amazing one from Roxana Gianazza. She's an experienced product owner, former mining engineer, and a passionate kite surfer. As the technology lead for data platforms at AI at BHP Exploration, Roxana leverages her extensive hands-on experience in the mining and consulting to drive the company's technology strategy with a focus on incremental delivery. A self-proclaimed generalist, she thrives on learning new skills and exploring diverse interests. Roxana will be sharing her insights on how to make decisions quickly from an overthinker. This talk is the result of invaluable learnings from a challenging time in her life and a common struggle for many of us, offering practical advice and strategies to streamline our decision-making processes, overcome the paralysis of overthinking, and to trust your gut. Welcome.
I woke up that morning, chest pounding, gasping for breath. It was only a few days before my birthday, but I couldn't shake off this feeling of impending doom hovering over me. I was overwhelmed, stressed, and anxious. And it wasn't just that morning. In fact, it wasn't the first time I'd felt that way. In fact, it had almost become a pattern. Even simple decisions now fill me with doubt. And the situation has only gotten worse as I try to distract myself. What if I'm making the wrong choices? What if I'm not doing enough? What if I'm not living up to the potential that I envisioned for myself? What if? My mind was spiraling into what felt like an infinite loop of uncertainty. I took a deep breath, thinking of how I got to this point. I was surely in no place to make a decision now. Can anyone in the audience relate to that feeling? The pressure of making choices, big or small, that hold more weight than they should. And maybe you can make the tough decisions at work, but are stumbling in other areas of your life. And it's not just about making such decisions, it's about making the right decision. I used to think that I had to get every decision perfect, that somehow each choice I made will somehow define me. If I just researched enough, if I just laid out the perfect plan, I will set myself up for the best possible outcome. And inevitably, when I will make a mistake, I will feel this crippling sense of failure, often rehearsing the event in hindsight. Eventually, after a few weeks of analysis paralysis, something shifted. I knew that I couldn't continue on this path of fear and procrastination. But slowly and surely, I was able to trust myself again and make decisions. So how did I go from this mess of indecision to someone that can make decisions with confidence? Well, this is what I would like to share with you all today. How I went from being an overthinker to someone who can actually trust my decision-making process and move forward. At first, my overthinking seemed harmless. I was just thinking things through. I was just being a perfectionist. But over time, I started to realize that my mind wasn't actually helping me. It was holding me back. I would second-guess every choice, from what to eat to whether I should change jobs or what car I should buy. My chest would tighten, my mind would race, and I was stuck in this endless loop of options and outcomes. This spiral kept me from making any decisions, let alone in a timely manner. And if I did make a decision, I often felt uncertain and filled with doubts. One thing that I did realize is that I could not continue to put pressure on myself to make decisions while I felt in this heightened state of stress. I learned to be kinder to myself instead of judging myself harshly for the state I was in. When I was in a think and overthinking, I wasn't just stuck in my head. I triggered my flight or fight response. The body responds to a perceived threat. My flight was simply not making any decision. I was frozen. You might be familiar with that feeling. It's like your body and your brain go into survival mode. Your heart rate spikes, you sweat, and your mind races through a million possibilities. But you don't actually do anything. The brain triggers the freeze response when it's overloaded or overwhelmed. And I was feeling constantly overloaded. And yes, many of those pressures were self-inflicted. I was organizing over all my perceived mistakes, and I thought that by now I would be in a better position. And now, even the smallest decisions, I was able to trigger my stress response. It felt like everything was too important, and in trying to find the perfect answer, I got stuck. And the worst part, the longer I waited, the longer I felt everything was falling apart. What I didn't realize was that I got stuck in a cycle of overthinking, and that was preventing me from making any progress. And that is a real trap. You cannot make any good decisions when you're in a state of panic. The stress, the pressure to make the right choice simply clouds your judgment. Well, I couldn't think my way out of this. I had to unfreeze my body and my mind before I could even begin to make a choice. And sometimes, the obvious things do work. During this time, simple exercise did the best. Taking a walk, doing a 10-minute workout, or even just stretching. Something, anything to get the blood flowing and out of my mind and into my body. Exercise wasn't just about getting healthier. It was about getting out of that state that tightened myself and I couldn't move forward. The goal isn't just to work out in a conventional sense, but to physically break the tension that's locking you in place. The second thing I started doing was to build a routine and remove the clutter from my environment. I'm not talking about having every detail organized, but it was a routine that gave me some structure and stability. It's about creating small, manageable anchors that will keep me going. A simple morning routine ritual helped. Getting up, getting dressed, check out my calendar and see my perfectly laid out time-boxed day with a few items that I wanted to achieve for the day. Simple, predictable, and routine. I didn't have to make a decision about those things. I just followed the plan that I had set out for myself. It helped me lower the anxiety surrounding my bigger decisions because my brain didn't feel out that I had to figure out everything at once. It took the pressure off. And then, yes, some mindful exercise that did help. I was never able to do daily meditation or even meditate for long, but I did find one good grounding exercise that did help. Just sitting at my desk for a few minutes and focusing on my surrounding helped a lot and calmed down my nerves. First, I will focus on 3 things I could see, then 3 things I could hear, and then 3 things I could touch. A few minutes of simply sitting still, focusing on my breathing, could calm my nervous system and reset my brain. That was enough. And here's the thing, the more I did it, the more I realized that I didn't need to solve everything at once. I could pause, take a step back, and give myself the space to think clearly. I didn't have to figure it all out right away. The next thing I had to tackle, what was really got me into this terrible state to start with. Making hard decisions and dealing with the consequences was part of what I am. It's even part of my day job. Something I was proud of being able to do comfortably and comfortably. So why did I lose my confidence in the first place? Why was I procrastinating so much? And this is why kindness to yourself is important. My inner judge slowly and surely corroded my trust in my own abilities. Every time I was faced with a decision, my mind would constantly flash back to those moments when things didn't go out the way I hoped, when I felt like I made the wrong decision. And every time I replayed those failures, I felt less capable of making decisions. You've been there, right? You've had those moments when you focus on your perceived past mistakes, the things that didn't work out. And let's be honest, I've made plenty of mistakes. And it seemed like those failures were all I can think about. Every wrong choice, every missed opportunity. But that was actually the key problem. I was only focusing on my failures. I had forgotten my wins. I started by making a small list of some decisions I had made that did actually work out. The times I took risk and it paid off. The time I accepted a job offer I wasn't sure about and it led to incredible growth. The time I changed a project scope last minute, but it turned out to be a great career-defining move. I had to retrain my brain to focus on the positives and give myself credit for the right decisions I had made. The more I did this, the more I realized I could trust myself again. There's a very good anecdote I heard a few years ago that stuck a chord with me and made me realize that maybe even that bad decision that you made or that mistake could actually lead to a very good outcome. Maybe it was the lesson you needed so you could learn the skills to make the next decision. What I realized was that life is not just a series of decisions, but about the journey and the lessons we learn along the way. Maybe, just maybe, that terrible product launch was really the seed of your next success. So this story is about a farmer going through the trials and tribulations of everyday life. And every day, something does happen to him that someone could consider objectively good or objectively bad. But no one really knows long-term what it might lead to. One day, he finds that his horse has run away, and everyone in the village tells him, "Oh, you're just so unlucky." And the farmer replies, "Maybe I am, maybe I'm not." The next day, a horse returns with a friend. "Oh, actually, you are so lucky. Now you have 2 horses instead of 1. And he replies, "Maybe I am, maybe I'm not." Then the next day, his son falls off the horse, trying to train him, and breaks his leg. "Oh, actually, no, you were unlucky." Well, he replies, "Maybe I am, maybe I'm not." And then that afternoon, the sergeant arrives looking for new recruits to conscript in the army for an upcoming war. And guess what? Because of that unlucky injury, his son wasn't recruited. The moral of this story is not that your decisions don't matter, but that no one really knows the full picture. And what you would consider a bad outcome might actually lead to some incredible growth. For many, perfectionism is the enemy of good decision making. The more I focus on perfection, the more I was paralyzed by the idea that a single wrong choice could have catastrophic consequences. But here's the truth, the perfect decision simply does not exist. Even more so now that things are constantly changing and innovation is moving at lightning speed. We all know that no product is perfect, no line of code is flawless, and no strategy works without iteration. So I did shift my focus from getting it perfect to just getting it moving. And I realized that taking action, even imperfect action, was more valuable than staying stuck. You can always course-correct later, pivot, but planning for all possible outcomes in your head, that is simply impossible. This is something we actually all understand very well working in technology. Think about how we approach building products. We don't wait for the code to be perfect before we release a new feature. We iterate, we test, we get feedback. The same principle applies to decision making. Start with something, anything, and the more you do it, the more confident you will become. If you're a Pokemon fan like me, you might have heard of Nintendo. The giant game console manufacturer started simply by creating play cards, and then dabbled in everything from vacuum cleaners to taxis before finding astronomical success in creating video game consoles. So I started making small decisions instead of huge life-altering ones. I practiced, and you know what? I just thought about what is the small steps I can make today. I wasn't waiting for perfection anymore. I was just making decisions, taking actions, and learning from the process. I talk a lot about trusting your gut and making decisions quickly. However, that doesn't mean I encourage making irrational decisions by not considering at least the key information. Particularly in areas that we are not an expert in, it's important to first assess what information is required and how we can access it before making a decision. But what is the optimized amount of information to collect before deciding? The number is actually much lower than you might have guessed. Scylla and Charybdis were mythical sea monsters in ancient Greek mythology that guarded the opposite sides of the Straits of Messina between Sicily and Calabria. When navigating the strait, sailors were often faced between two very dangerous extremes in order to survive. This is the dilemma that we often face when making decisions, between collecting more information or delaying the decision to too late. So how do you find a balance? Well, research in mathematics have established that there is a Goldilocks point, and that answer is 37%. This is where you optimize the amount of information collected and then the time taken to make a decision. So think if you have a number of people to interview before making a hire, you can make a decision after having interviewed 37% of candidates. This will allow you to select the best candidate without delaying your decision. And this is actually backed up by many leaders and other literature. Many people consider the Goldilocks zones of decision-making between 40% and 70% of the information you think you need. Anything more than that, and the time taken to find that information, and even having too much information, is actually often deterrent to your decision. So I know we all had a big day, but before I bring this all together to a close, I just want to thank today's sponsors for making an excellent decision in supporting DDD and the wonderful tech community in Perth. Today just couldn't happen without them. And I hope that everyone has taken at least a lesson or two from all our wonderful speakers today. So in conclusion, let me bring this all together. The next time you're stuck in a loop on overthinking, paralyzed by indecision, remember this. First, a little bit of stress is normal, but you cannot make a good decision when you're in a state of panic. When your body and brain feel in survival mode, nothing good will come out of that. The key is to calm down, move your body, and take a break. Do something that might help your nervous system calm down. Second, you do need to trust your intuition. Don't focus on past failures or mistakes. Recognize the times you made great decisions. Build confidence in yourself by making smaller decisions first and create momentum. And finally, forget about perfection. There is no such thing as a perfect decision. It simply doesn't exist. The decision that matters is the one that keeps you moving forward. And remember, action creates clarity. In the end, it's all about getting unstuck, taking action, and iterating as you go. You only need 37% of the data to make a timely decision. Life, just like tech, is a series of decisions, some big, some small, but none of them need to paralyze you. So take a deep breath, get moving, and trust that clarity will follow. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Roxana. Great tips there to share. Thank you.